Hey, greetings everyone, GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. On our last episode, we looked at the Chronicles, a little section called the Book of Medivh, which basically started describing Terran Gorfine and the other Death Knights' hunt for these powerful artifacts. These artifacts are going to supposedly allow them to open up some portals to other worlds. They got them from touching Gul'dan's mind. They were already using the Skull of Gul'dan. And I think they actually got the Book of Medivh. They went to Alterac, Paranold had it, Deathwing had made him crazy, and they defeated the forces there. So I think that's going to happen a little bit later in the game. But stay a while and listen to Chapter 8 of the Beyond the Dark Portal. Clouds hung low over Stormwind, brushing the tips of the city's many towers. A chill wind tugged at the guards' cloaks as they huddled at their posts outside Stormwind Keep, shivering. Inside, their commander Terralion and his advisors were still awake, poring over maps in one of the armories in the keep, now the Alliance command post. The guards had nodded to the beautiful elf who had accompanied their commander and was currently in the room with the other strategists, though anyone with eyes could see the tension between the two. They shivered, but paid no real heed to a particularly cold breeze that wafted through the city, danced into the keep's gate doors, and then drifted up the wide central hallway and veered to the left. Up it swirled through another corridor and across a small courtyard open to the cloudy night sky. A pair of guards stood to either side of the entrance to the royal library. They shivered as they felt the breeze brush up against them, and squinted as the shadows around them seemed to deepen. Suddenly a stronger wind sprang up, whisking the shadows away and revealing several figures in their stead. 4 of them seemed to be human, at least in size, and they all wore heavy hooded cloaks and strange wrappings around limbs and torso, but their eyes glowed a fiery red. The last figure, however, towered over them, and even in the near dark his skin gleamed green. One of the guards inhaled to cry out in alarm as he drew his sword. He never got the chance. The orc stepped forward, already swinging a massive axe. The guard fell in 2 pieces. His companion was able to raise his shield and block a blow from one of the strange wrapped figures and thrust with his spear, to no avail. Another of the intruders caught the spear half and chopped it in half, then spun and delivered a sweeping blow to the guard's neck just above the shield's edge. The man fell without a sound, his head nearly severed, and the figure stepped over the 2 twitching corpses, pushed the doors open, and entered the royal library. "Be quick," Gorfind instructed. "We must not be discovered." His Death Knights nodded, as did Pargath Throat Splitter, the orc who had so quickly dispatched the first guard. Gorfind had wanted a bleeding hollow warrior with him, since they knew this world better than any other Horde member, and Pargath had impressed him as one of the smarter and quieter warriors available, so almost like he's a rogue too. All 5 of them spread out, combing the library for their prize. After several minutes, Pargath cursed. "It's not here," he whispered. "What?" Gorfind joined the warrior next to the empty glass case. "Are you sure?" In response, Pargath gestured at the case and at a small tan card stuck in one corner. Gorfind had access to his host body's memories and skills, and after a second of concentration he could make out the writing. "Book of Medivh, not to be opened without express permission from the king or from the Alliance commander." "It was here," Gorfind mused, studying the case's deep velvet interior, which had clearly been weighed down by something large, heavy, and rectangular. "But where is it now?" "Over here," one of his Death Knights called softly, and Gorfind hurried toward him, Pargath and the other 2 Death Knights right behind him. "It looks as though someone else was thinking along the same lines we were." The Death Knight pointed at a small reading alcove and the body within it. The corpse wore the armor of an Alliance guard, a dagger hilt protruding from the narrow space between the helm and the breastplate. "Alterac," Pargath whispered, staring down at the dead man. "That insignia there." Pargath pointed to the markings on the dagger hilt. "That's the Alterac crest." Gorfind's own host memories confirmed it. "So Alterac has the book," he mused. Despite his betrayal during the previous warlord, Paranold still ruled Alterac, at least for now, and the book was valuable to the Alliance. Alterac could use it as a bargaining chip. Yes, it did make sense. It doesn't make that much sense. In Chronicles, they don't even mention that that's how they got the book. They just say Alterac had the book. But why leave behind such an obvious clue? He wondered aloud. That's a careless assassin. Perhaps he was sending a message, Pargath suggested, showing the alliance that Alterac and its king are still in the game. Or, and he grinned, his tusks showing, maybe he was just a careless assassin. Well, we shall not be so careless, Gorfine said. We need this book, and so we must go to Alterac. Take the dagger. I just as soon the Alliance didn't have the same clue we did. The corpse is fresh. Let the guards think all three were slain by the same hand when they come across them on the morrow. Pargath obediently knelt and tugged free the deadly weapon. To Alterac, then? Yes, but not just yet. We need to keep to our original plan as much as possible. We're still going to Black Rock Mountain. We need Rend, Maim, and the red dragons they control. Pargath nodded. Black Rock is on the way to Alterac, he pointed out. Exactly. Gorfine grinned. And with a red dragon at our disposal, we could be there and back in hours and still return to the portal ahead of schedule. He nodded. But first we must leave here as quietly as we came. He beckoned them to him. The shadows crept closer, the temperature in the library dropping. A moment later, a chill wind slipped through the doors, past the cooling bodies and the pools of blood around them, back down the corridor and out of the keep, where it quickly escaped into the night. A day later, Gorfine and his band reached Blackrock Mountain. Their small group had grown. They had contacted Gaz Soul Ripper and his fellow Death Knight, had sent Fenris Wolf Brother to the Thunderlord clan, Tagar Spinebreaker of the Bone Chewer clan, and several of Each's finest warriors. Those clans are mentioned in the manual to the game. Those leaders. The orcs had met up with Gorfine and the others at the base of the mountain range as commanded. Their expanded group was as large a force as Gorfine felt they could assemble without being spotted by the Alliance. He hoped it was large enough to get the attention of the Sons of Blackhand. They climbed openly up the mountain, making sure the orc sentries hidden nearby could see them clearly. Gorfine did not want even the suggestion that they might be attacking or sneaking in. Finally, they reached the top, where rocks had split open and magma flowed through natural channels like a glowing red river beneath graceful bridges. A massive stone keep stood against the spire itself, carved from the same glossy black rock which gave this place its name, and Gorfine's lips curled in wry memory. This had been where Doomhammer had established his base, and where the Horde war chief had introduced Gorfine and the other Death Knights to the assembled clans. And it was below here in the Valley of the Mountain's Feet where Doomhammer had fought the Alliance leader Lothar and won, only to then be bested by Lothar's second Turalian. Defeat and victories both had their ghosts here. He did not waste much time recollecting. He had the present to think of and his own advancement. With a gesture, he instructed his group to halt at the entrance. Sure enough, a moment later, 4 armed guards, large and powerful, appeared, looking more than eager to strike. We come to speak with the Sons of Blackhand. Tell them Taran Gorfiend has news and a proposal for them. He stepped forward and let the hood fall from his face. The guards paled slightly. One of them whispered something to another. The second orc listened, bowed, and disappeared into the darkness. He returned a few moments later. The commander listened, then turned to Gorfine and his group. Stay close, he warned, and led them into the keep himself. Gorfine followed as they went ever deeper into the heart of the mountain, his glowing red eyes taking everything in. The keep was clearly in heavy use, and they saw several other orcs marching past here or there. All stopped to study them as they passed, obviously surprised to see a Death Knight here on Blackrock Spire, but none of them dared say anything. Finally, they reached the wide chamber Gorfine remembered as Doomhammer's throne room and war council. The figure who now lounged in the heavy black chair carved from the mountain rock was shorter than Doomhammer, more brutish in appearance, with heavier features and an unkempt mane of brown hair. Metals and bones dangled from his hair, nose, ears, and brow, and his armor was heavily adorned, as was his massive razor-sharp sword. Rend, Gorfine said as he stopped just beyond the sword's reach. Gorfiend, Rend Blackhand, co-chieftain of the Blackrock clan, replied. Its ugly face split in a grin that made him look even uglier. He shifted his position, flinging a leg over the arm of the throne. Well. What brings you here, dead man? He's like man power stance posing him.
Yeah,
Came a higher pitched voice. Gorfine's eyes shifted to where Ren's brother Mame crouched beside and just a little behind the throne, half hidden in his shadows.
You got some nerve coming all the way in to see us.
The dark portal has been restored, Gorfine began, but Ren waved that away with a snort.
I saw it in my dreams, the orc leader replied. I knew it had to be one of you warlocks causing it.
A frown crossed his broad face.
What about it?
Gorfine frowned. This conversation was not going as he'd hoped. Ner'zhul leads the Horde now, he said. I have been sent to bring you back into the fold, you and your Blackrock clan. We need the Dragonmaw clan as well and the Red Dragons they command. Rand glanced over at Mame and the two brothers laughed together.
After 2 years where nothing happens, you go marching back up here into my keep, a handful of fresh warriors trotting behind you, and you expect me to get all excited about kneeling before a withered old shaman? And by the way, I should also hand over not only my own warriors, but my dragons as well.
He laughed again, though his eyes blazed with fury.
Not damn likely.
You must, Gorfine insisted. We need your strength and your dragons to carry out our plan.
I don't care what you need,
Ren replied coldly. He rose and Gorfine realized that despite his childish attitude, Ren Blackhand was very dangerous.
That's your problem, not mine. I don't give a damn about whatever old Ner'zhul might be planning. Where was he when we fought the Alliance? I was here. Where was he when Doomhammer fell? I was here. Me too, echoed Mame. Where was he when the portal was destroyed and we got stuck here? Ren continued. Where was he when we were hunted for 2 long years and slowly rebuilt our forces with whatever orcs had survived and could make their way to us? I'll tell you where. He was safe and snug on Draenor, not lifting a finger to help.
Ren snatched up his sword and slammed it down on the throne's arm so hard the stone splintered. Mame jumped, then laughed with an echo of mania in his voice.
But I was here. I pulled these orcs back together. I rebuilt the Horde, not over on Draenor, but here on Azeroth, right beneath the Alliance's nose. I am War Chief now, and no used-up old shaman is going to take that away from me.
Gorfine longed to smear the boy into paste, but refrained. Please, he said through clenched teeth. Please, I ask you to reconsider. Without your aid, Ner'zhul will fail, Ren finished bluntly. Mame looked gleeful. He's got no experience with real war, he's got no head for tactics, no understanding of combat, and no real leadership skills. The Alliance will crush his little pretend Horde, and then, he grinned, I will pick up the pieces. We will gather all the survivors to us, Mame and I, just as we have been doing all along since the last war ended. Mame crept closer, and Ren let his hand fall on his brother's head as he might pet dogs.
And with the Horde, the real Horde, even larger, and with the dragons at our side and me in command, we're going to sweep across the face of Azeroth.
Ren grinned directly at Gorfine.
And then, dead man, you'll serve me.
Behind Gorfine, Tagar stiffened.
You coward,
he howled at Ren.
Traitorous dog! I'll cut you down like the cur you are and take your throne for myself. Then your people will follow my orders and take their place in the Horde once more. Oh yeah,
Ren replied lazily.
You want to attack me now?
His grin widened and Gorfine turned to rest a hand on Tagar's shoulder. He has guards nearby, many of them. He warned the Bone Chewer chieftain quietly. If you attack him, they'll kill you, and then we're short one chieftain. He shook his head. Now is not the time. Tagar grumbled but stepped back a pace. Ren looked disappointed. One final time. Will you join us? Gorfine asked Ren softly.
Oh, wait, let me think. No.
Ren retorted, smirking. Mame chuckled. Very well. Gorfine bowed, then there was nothing more to say. Ren laughed.
Go on,
he instructed.
I can't wait to get news of your gory destruction.
He and his brother laughed again, and the sound echoed through the chamber and into the halls and corridors beyond. as Gorfine led his dispirited group out of the keep and back down from the spire itself. The sun had already set and the sky was fading from dusk to true dark. Gorfine glared at the dancing orange and yellow campfire. Things had not gone according to plan, and he was deep in thought, pondering his next move. The others were wisely silent, and the only sound was the crackle of the flames and the occasional soft grunt of quiet conversation. A sudden noise in the darkness made them all leap to their feet, the tension strung taut as a bow.
"Human, kill him!"
came the fierce cry from the orc sent to keep watch. The Death Knights stayed silent, but the orcs roared, happy to have a target for their frustration. Gorfine could see the human now, wandering boldly up to their very encampment. Tagar charged him, bringing down his club in a blow that would crush the human's fragile skull. What happened next stunned them all. Gorfine watched as the human reached upward almost languidly, caught the club, and twisted it from the orc's grasp. Tagar gaped at him, then he and the others prepared to lunge again. The human cried, "Hold!" Even Gorfine doubted he could move against the human. Such was the power in that single word. Who was this man? Gorfine watched, curious and not a little concerned, as the human entered the ring of firelight. He would be handsome among his people, Gorfine thought, tall and well-built for a human, with lustrous black hair and strong yet elegant features. Fine clothing draped his frame, and an untouched jeweled sword hung at his side. He grimaced slightly and brushed something from his sleeve. "I know you like nothing better than to attack me again, but you've sullied my clothing enough for one night. I don't fancy getting your blood on it." He smiled, a slow, dangerous smile that revealed perfect teeth. "I'm not quite what I seem, you see." His shadow flickered behind him, then suddenly seemed to rise up, growing monstrous in size and shape, great shadow wings spreading all around them. "Who are you?" Gorfine demanded. "I've been known by many names." The grin widened. "One of them is Deathwing." Deathwing? Gorfine's mind reeled. He didn't question the statement, bizarre as it sounded. He'd already felt the faintest hint of Deathwing's power. Gorfine had heard of the mighty black dragon, perhaps the single most powerful creature on Azeroth. They had seen black dragons a few times during the war, and Gorfine had always wondered why the Dragonmaw clan hadn't captured them instead of the reluctant red dragons. He had suspected they were either too difficult to target or that doing so would awaken Deathwing's wrath. Gorfine tried to speak but could not, so stunned and horrified was he. He tried again. "What do you want with us?" Deathwing waved a beringed hand airily. "Calm yourself," he replied slightly contemptuously. "I have not come to slay you, else you would be mere ash already." His eyes glowed from within for an instant, hinting at the vast fires that lurked beneath that human facade. "Quite the contrary. I have been watching you, and I like what I see." He spread a kerchief on a nearby rock, then settled himself beside the fire and motioned for them to do the same. They obeyed, slowly. "You have great strength and impressive focus," he grinned at them. "I would very much like to behold the world that gave rise to such a fierce and determined people." Gorfine studied their uninvited guest. Was Deathwing asking to visit Draenor? Why? As if reading his mind, Deathwing turned to meet Gorfine's gaze and nodded. His dark eyes were hooded, the power within banked, and for the moment he seemed merely a half-assured human. "I know of your meeting with the one called Rend Blackhand," Deathwing said softly. "Idiots, he and his brother both. But not without their own power. And I know you desired the red dragons the Dragonmaw clan has enslaved." The corners of his mouth turned up at that last word, as if the very idea delighted him. "Substandard beasts, in my opinion. I don't know why you're bothering with them." Gorfine wasn't sure how to respond. "Dragons are powerful beings," he began cautiously. "Indeed we are. You wish for allies? Then I have an offer for you. My mighty children shall lend you their aid, and willingly, rather than under duress." One of the orcs, obviously anxious to please the unexpected guest, hesitantly offered Deathwing a mug of ale. The great creature frowned terribly, glaring at the orc. "Take that putrid stuff away." Cowed, the orc retreated. Deathwing composed himself, turning his bank-fired eyes to Gorfine. "Where was I? Oh yes, I will lend you the aid of my children." In return, I demand safe passage through the dark portal, and aid in transporting some cargo through there as well.
You want to go to Draenor?
Tagore burst out.
Why?
The smile of Deathwing turned upon the Bone Chewer chieftain froze any further interruptions in the orc's throat. My plans are my own, orc, the dragon man said quietly, his voice almost a hiss. But don't worry, it will not hinder your own plotting. Gorfinn considered the offer. He needed dragons, whatever their color, for the plan to work. If he accepted the bargain, he would not need to deal with Rend again after all, though he might pound some humility into the self-styled war chief later if he had the chance. He didn't know what Deathwing was up to, but as long as it didn't interrupt their own plans, he didn't see a problem with granting the dragon's request. Very well, Deathwing, he said finally. Lord Deathwing, he replied without humor, and there was an edge to his voice. Let's observe the proprieties, shall we? Gorfinn inclined his head. Of course, Lord Deathwing, I agree. We will give your people and cargo safe passage. But first I have a mission to accomplish in the north. I need to retrieve some cargo of my own. Very well, Deathwing agreed. He rose gracefully to his feet. I will speak to my children and inform them of this bargain. When I return, I shall help expedite this task of yours. He dusted his hands off, although he had touched nothing, and without another word he strode into the shadows. Right, Gorfinn said after a moment, when he was sure the dragon was gone and not about to leap out at them from the darkness. Let's pack up. We need to get moving, and we don't have much time. The others hastened to obey, all of them clearly happy to focus their attention upon breaking camp rather than on the strange figure who had just allied himself with them. Gorfinn just hoped Deathwing really was an ally. If he proved otherwise, there was nothing they could do to stop him. Two figures, male and female, turned at Deathwing's approach as they waited, not far from the orc encampment. The man was powerfully made and wore a short dark beard and neat mustache, while the woman was petite and had pale skin and long flowing straight hair. Both had glossy black hair and features similar to those Deathwing sported in his human guise. What news, father? The woman asked, her voice like silk over iron. They have agreed, as I knew they would, Onyxia. Oh, there's the first mention of Onyxia, Deathwing replied. He stroked his daughter's cheek, and she leaned her face into his hand, smiling up at him. Soon we shall have 2 worlds at our disposal instead of 1. He kissed her pale brow, then turned to her brother. But I have another task for you while I am gone. Name it, father, the man replied, and it shall be done. Deathwing smiled. There are still orcs within Blackrock Spire. They have severed ties with their kin and refuse to rejoin the Horde. That leaves them ripe for the plucking. His smile widened as he reached out to clasp his son by the shoulder. When I return, Nefarian, I want this Rend Black Hand. You two will take control of the mountain and the orcs living in it. They will become our servants. There's another famous black dragon. Nefarian grinned, his expression a mirror of his father's. Little could be easier. We'll have the orcs in their mountain fortress waiting for you, he promised. Excellent. Deathwing regarded his children for a moment, then nodded. Now I must return to our new allies and aid them in their little tasks, that they may be the more quickly turn to mine. As their father returned the way he had come, Onyxia bared her teeth in a feral smile. Well, brother, shall we go see to our new home and our new subjects? Indeed we shall, sister, Nefarian replied with a laugh. Good sport ahead, I think. He offered his arm, which she accepted, curling delicate pale fingers around his powerful bicep, and together they vanished into the shadows. A heartbeat later, the sound of great wings flapping overhead blended into the evening breeze. Yeah, and I think those 2 dragons definitely... I don't know if one of them stays in Blackrock Mountain. I know there's the Black Shrine, the Onyx Shrine. Oh, I think the Sunken Temple or one of the swamps has some black dragons. Those 2 have a lot of roles to play in the time ahead in World of Warcraft. All right, so that was basically everything that was covered, except they didn't get the book yet. So it's possible we've got to read another chapter before we actually get the Book of Medivh. Yeah, so we're going to see. Or it might go on to us doing the actual, like, assault on Netherguard Keep. That might be next. All right. This episode is in the pipe, 5x5. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Lore of Warcraft.